Peace and welcome to another edition of our Motor House Artist Talk. I'm your host, Farajii, Muhammed. Thank you so much for checking in. All right, folks, you know, we have another dynamic class for our Digital Artist Portfolio 6.0 cohort. Yep, we got 4 brand new people that are going to be showing their artistic skills and so much more. So today, we are starting to talk with our very own Stephanie Ray, who is a flutist, not a flautist, well maybe, but she plays the flute. And today we're going to talk to her about her musical journey, talk to her about her involvement in the music world, and most importantly, what she expects from the DAP program here at Motor House. Now, before we jump into the conversation, as always, folks, make sure you check us out on all social media platforms. We have our website at motorhousebaltimore.com, and we can also be found on Facebook at Motorhouse Baltimore and on Instagram at Motorhouse Baltimore as well. And we would love to have you as one of our friends and followers and supporters as well. Plus, we are also getting, we're looking for donations for our Be the Art fundraising campaign. This is an opportunity for you to support us as we support local artists like Stephanie and so many other great people here at Motor House. You can find all of that information about Be the Art fundraiser at motorhousebaltimore.com. All right, let's jump into our conversation with flutist Stephanie Ray. Stephanie, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. So it really is flutist.
You know, some people have a really specific preference. I really don't care.
You don't
But
care?
flutist is just fine.
You just like...
I'm a person who plays a tube of metal.
A person who plays a tube of metal?
Tube of metal that I blow into, and that's really what it is at the end of the day. So, whatever you want to call it.
I wasn't prepared for that. All right, so since you're a person who blows into a tube of metal, okay, all right, cool. Now tell us, talk about your journey first, Stephanie. How did you figure out that this tube of metal is the thing that you wanted to do?
Just calling my name, yeah. So in elementary school in Texas is where I grew up. We had our high school and junior high bands. They would come and perform for the younger students. And I don't know, there was just something about it when they came to perform. I was like, I want to do that. I hadn't really found something I was like super passionate about at that point. So it just called to me, and we had a little musical instrument fair where we could come and try out the instruments before we signed up for band.
Okay.
Flute was the first station. I made a noise on it, which apparently is very challenging to do for a first time, and they said I'd be good at it, and I was like, okay.
Wait a minute,
Done.
time out. So you went, had this flute station, picked up the flute,
Picked up the flute. Made a little whoo.
made a sound.
Yeah.
And like the whole room stopped and looked at you and said, wait a minute, this actually works.
I mean, that's a very dramatic version of what happened, but yes, let's go with that.
Now, how old were you?
I was 12.
You were 12?
So I started a bit later. We didn't start until junior high, which is 7th grade for us in Texas. So I know a lot of people will start young now, 4th, 5th grade, 3 years old, but I started a bit late in comparison.
So did you ever play a musical instrument prior to that, or were you ever interested in playing a musical instrument?
I was, and I actually played the recorder for a couple of years, which we had to in school. So when I say I did, I was with the other cohorts of my elementary students playing the recorder, yeah.
And you didn't want to stick with that one?
Have you heard the recorder? No, nobody wants to stick with that. But it was a good introduction.
It was a good introduction when you put it down. All right, so you're 12, 13 years old, you're playing the flute, and did it click for you that, you know what, this is actually what I want to do with my life?
Not until a year or two later. I actually almost quit after my first year, because turns out the flute is really challenging, and that first sound that I made was deceptive, and I was really horrible for the first year. It was very challenging. I'd never read music before, and never played in a band or anything like that. So I ended up getting a private instructor.
Okay.
And that was what really helped me kind of understand and gel things together. And then as soon as things started clicking, yeah, I couldn't think of anything else that I wanted to do other than play music.
Wow. Wow. But it only took you a year, because sometimes people would, if a situation is very challenging, then people would say, maybe this is not for me. How did you overcome that?
Again, just having some of that guidance, having somebody that had been playing flute their entire life, and having somebody that believed in me enough to keep pushing me to pursue it.
Yeah.
And seeing the growth. I mean, it's always been the most personal thing for me with the instrument, is the level of growth I'm able to achieve with myself. And I think that just kind of kept escalating and building for me.
So speaking of growth, how much time do you dedicate to practicing your craft?
So when I was in school, in my undergrad or graduate, it's expected that you spend about 4 hours of individual practicing a day. And that's on top of being in rehearsals, being in lessons, being in classes. So you're really all consumed with music. I can't say I spend 4 hours a day now, but I think I've put in the time to be able to, have some of that facility available for me. But nowadays, I'm really honestly lucky if I get an hour or two of practicing in with everything else going on.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so music, has it become, like I've heard some musicians say that music is a form of therapy.
Yes.
Has that been the case for you?
100%. I always find myself to be a very shy, quiet, kind of awkward kid, and finding this instrument was a way to connect with a part of myself that I didn't really know about, and it was gave me an opportunity to kind of put on a performer hat and step out and be somebody else for an hour or two whenever I had performances, and still to this day. Especially as I'm exploring more and more solo work and works that are kind of outside the traditional canon, it really pushes me into different spaces and different spaces in myself too. So definitely a form of therapy.
And talk to us a little bit about the inspiration for you to stay so dedicated. I mean, you told me prior to this conversation that it's almost been 20 years, and that's a long time to dedicate to anything. Yeah. So what's been the inspiration for you? How do you keep that fire lit?
It goes through waves, honestly. When I graduated master's here at Peabody, I went through a period of time where I didn't know if I was going to continue playing. I was kind of burnt out. I was disillusioned with kind of the career path that had been laid out, as far as kind of going into more of a symphony orchestra role. And I had to kind of come to terms with what did I really want to use this craft for, and kind of getting back to that element of playing for fun, for playing for me, for exploring different aspects of myself as a person and as an artist. Yeah. So it's really been just this driving individual fire to learn more about myself and to push myself into different territories. And it's fun. Being able to play with other instrumentalists, other musicians, other artists, it's unlike anything. That kind of shared collective energy that you get in a performance is it's unlike any feeling I can describe. It fuels you. Wow. Yeah.
What is the thing that you learn most about yourself now that you are a flutist?
As a flutist. To be vulnerable, that I can find spaces where I can kind of let that wall down and be more present with the people I'm sharing space with. And I think that's a difference between when I was pursuing more of a traditional classical music route. It feels very much like you're a performer and there's the audience and there's this big wall in between. Whereas when I do more chamber or solo or more community-based performances, it really is a little bit more of a connection with the people that you're sharing space with and telling a story. Yeah. So, did I answer your question?
No, you answered the question well. No, you answered the question well. I mean, and I think that, I think people should know that this is an ongoing, evolutionary process. That you're going to go through those waves. You're going to go up. You're going to go down. You're going to have days where you might be practicing for hours, and then other days you can't get a 30-minute practice in.
Yeah, that's so right. And I think especially this past year with the pandemic and everything that's gone on, it was a time for me to kind of get my own health in order too, because as you can imagine, playing an instrument, especially an instrument that's very awkward like the flute, you develop a lot of like physical tension and physical pain sometimes from that. And I started going to physical therapy this past year because I've just had a lot of pain playing over the past few years that I hadn't really addressed. And there's this kind of mentality that you have to push through it and you just have to keep practicing. And at some point your body's like, no, I'm done with that. It's like, you're gonna be, you can't do that anymore. So I actually had to take some space away from it. I think the pandemic was a good opportunity to be able to take some time both mentally and physically and kind of get my body right so I can keep giving to my craft.
I never thought about that. That is interesting. I never thought that you would have to. I mean, I know I've seen people play the flute. I mean, I went to an art school, so I've seen it, but I never thought about the impact of the consequences, quote unquote.
Yeah.
When you're playing at a certain angle and you're holding it, and something that you just said, it just made me think about even your breath. Like, and we're dealing with a pandemic where your breathing is often impacted. So, I'm sure you've been like super, super careful considering, that is a big part of who you are and what you do.
Absolutely. I can't play my instrument without the breath. So, definitely. That's a huge component. Some people call us athletes of the small muscles in some sense, because we use a lot of muscles in our face and in our bodies holding the instruments. And if you think of athletes, they have massage therapists, they have sports therapists, they have everybody kind of like looking after them and making sure that their bodies are in peak form. We don't really get that as musicians that much. We have to kind of seek out that for ourselves in physical therapy and yoga and breath work and all of that.
So let's talk a little bit about your involvement with our digital artist portfolio program. I mean, because one is that, along with having this conversation, you will have an exhibition as a flute player. But talk to us, like, what got your interest about the DAP program? You said, you've performed for a lot of different places, for a lot of different, in a lot of different settings, but you said, what, I'm going to bring my talents to Motor House.
Motor House has been a great space in Baltimore for, artists, and I've had the opportunity to play here with some different ensembles, so I was very familiar with what y'all are doing. And as far as working with the digital artist portfolio, I think for me, this is an opportunity to kind of rebrand myself as an independent artist, opposed to just a player that works within various ensembles or organizations. So really kind of honing who I am as an individual artist by myself. So I'm very grateful and appreciative of this opportunity that y'all have.
Wow. So you're trying to just step out from the pack and differentiate yourself a little bit.
A little bit, yeah.
No, that's what's up. That's what's up. So, what can people expect in your exhibition?
So one of the things I've been really exploring in my craft lately is performing works for solo flute, but that incorporate electronics or computer sounds, that incorporate some sort of digital media in some way. And I think there's a lot of neat innovations that can happen with those two mediums, with music and media. And it doesn't feel as lonely playing a solo when there's something behind you to support you sonically. So the piece I'll be playing for the exhibition is called Aware by a New York-based composer, Natalie Joachim, who is a singer and also a flute player herself, a flutist herself. And this piece really speaks to me because I think awareness is such a big part of being an artist. It's something that playing the flute has helped me increase my own awareness. And I think that we as people can just benefit from being more and more aware of how we are in our spaces, how we are interacting with each other, how we are interacting with our art. So this piece really speaks to me on multiple levels.
I love that. I'm really excited about seeing how everything sounds together. I mean, you're talking about the digital sound, you're talking about the sonic sound of the flute, which is already very melodic. So that is going to be very, very interesting. All right, so Stephanie, how can people get in touch with you? I always want to give folks our artists an opportunity to put out all of their information.
Yeah. So I am on Instagram, Stephanie L. Ray _88, I think is my handle. But primarily you can find me with Peak Collective, that's Pique. We're a group of 5 musicians that put on our own shows in Baltimore, and we've been doing it for about 5 years. Or through Mind on Fire, which is a larger scale kind of musical arts cooperative. Those are the 2 main groups that I perform with. So definitely check them out on Facebook, Instagram, on their web pages.
That is Stephanie Ray, flute player.
Yes.
Flutist.
Flutist, flautist.
She is flautist. Makes me want to say floatist, you know what I mean? Like, just first lady at this point. Stephanie, we appreciate you.
Appreciate you.
Thank you so much. We're very excited about your exhibition and see, you know, how everything comes together. I'm sure it's going to be dynamic. You're a professional. You've been doing this for a long time.
Thanks. Yeah.
We appreciate you, though. Folks, make sure y'all check out Stephanie Ray's exhibition, and most importantly, follow her on all social media platforms as well as Peak Collective, and make sure you show your support. Again, she's just one of the many, many great talents here at Motor House, and we're very excited to have her part of our 6.0 cohort here at Motor House for our digital artist portfolio. Look, when I come back, y'all gonna see me talking to a whole lot of other folks, but we appreciate you checking in. Our conversation, our Motor House Artist Talk with Stephanie Ray, the flutist. Again, make sure you check us out at motorhousebaltimore.com. Thank you.